My name is Sandy Hoffman. I'm the Assistant Athletics Director and Volleyball Coach here at Bentley University, a Division II school just outside of Boston. My life in athletics began in the 1970s when I was a varsity high school athlete. Had the opportunity to participate in 4 sports back then: field hockey, volleyball, basketball, and softball on Long Island in New York. And during the 70s, if you were to ask me if I knew what Title IX even was as a high school student, I don't think I was aware of it. But it did definitely have an impact in my life. Obviously, 29 years later, I'm still in college athletics. The opportunities for women have expanded immensely, and that has obviously filtered into my job role here at Bentley University. Well, first of all, Title IX had a direct impact on all girls and women in sports. More towards the late 70s. I understand in the early 70s when I was in high school, I didn't understand the impact, and perhaps women's athletics didn't really take a grasp of the opportunities Title IX could afford them. But once I realized that the opportunities were there, I looked for a college sports program after high school, and there were many opportunities that I was really not aware of. And so I think when I graduated high school in '76, that's when the explosion was really starting. And ironically, Title IX affected me probably in a negative way at first and then a positive way. I went on to Springfield College, where I participated in varsity basketball for 1 year and varsity volleyball for 4 years. And at Springfield, I also majored in athletic training and physical education. So here I go with my degree 4 years later in 1980, and I'm out job searching and find a high school physical education position, and I wanted to do athletic training. I had an athletic training certification, and that was my goal in life, to become a physical therapist and sports medicine consultant. At that time, though, what the high school that I did get a teaching job in was looking for an athletic trainer, but unfortunately the athletic training room was in the boys' locker room. So you can see in the 1980s there was still this segregation, I guess, of athletics and the importance of boys' sports perhaps in a high school, but not girls' sports. And that's what Title IX really did, allowed equal access to facilities and training and support services such as sports medicine. So ironically back then, when I wasn't offered the athletic training job, they needed a girls soccer coach at the high school, and they were willing to hire me with no experience in girls soccer to do the soccer position. So again, those type of things don't happen nowadays. But what that did for me is kind of push me into the coaching world, and at the same time, well, probably a year or two after graduating from college, Bentley University here decided to start adding women's sports, primarily due to Title IX, and also, just as important as Title IX, Bentley really wanted to start attracting women to its college campus. So it added volleyball, and through some networking, the athletics director found out I was a volleyball player, had been doing some volleyball coaching on the club circuit, and then I was hired as really the second volleyball coach here at Bentley. The first year they had the men's assistant basketball coach. So again, we're talking about times have changed from the 1982 era when volleyball was started here at Bentley. In the 1970s, as I mentioned, I was in high school, or junior high and high school. My mom was actually my physical education teacher and my volleyball and basketball coach. So I had to ask her this question of how the movement changed. What she remembers really was that there were no varsity JV sports for girls to compete against other high schools. Girls were predominantly competing intramural, within the school system. So that was a major change, and I don't remember that, but I do remember come my sophomore year that I was afforded the ability to play 4 varsity sports. The movement also much different from these days where a lot of girls in sports are really focusing on one or two sports. So they're not only involved in their high school sports, but they're involved in club programs and AAU programs that help to enhance their abilities in their sport, primarily because of the athletic scholarships and opportunities to participate in college that now exist due to Title IX. I certainly witnessed firsthand some of the opposition to Title IX, primarily due to the fact that when schools started to have to add women's sports, I think initially it didn't affect the men's sports as much as it does now. For those schools that are facing discriminatory lawsuits or other challenges budget-wise, they're looking at perhaps trying to cut men's sports rather than just add women's sports in order to meet Title IX mandates. And so this has definitely negatively impacted perhaps some men's views in terms of Title IX and the effects that it has had. But again, you know, do you blame the women or do you blame an institution that chooses to cut a sport rather than add a women's sport because of budget constraints? Job opportunities certainly became available after Title IX was instilled. And that was primarily because there were now many more varsity opportunities, intercollegiate opportunities, interscholastic opportunities for girls to participate. Therefore, they needed coaching. Unfortunately, I think in the beginning, a lot of men took those positions. They were more experienced. They perhaps had participated in sports early on. And so I wouldn't say Title IX afforded girls, or excuse me, women, the opportunity to coach right away in these settings. But eventually, as more and more girls and women became involved in sports, went on to college to play sports, and then perhaps get a degree or an education in coaching and physical education, therefore more women turn to the coaching world. It is still a challenge in terms of women staying in the coaching profession, the refereeing profession, athletics administration, but I do see the increasing numbers of women participating in those opportunities. I think in the high schools, girls' sports were extremely popular. Girls were looking for increased participation. As I said, they wanted to participate in Little League. They wanted to participate outside their school system and compete for a league championship or a county championship. And so that really exploded back in the 70s. And then with the availability of colleges providing opportunities for girls to continue their sports careers, that really emphasized the need for schools to meet the needs of interested prospects to their institution. So girls now were looking at schools also for athletics, not just academics. Nowadays, women's sports at many institutions are on par with the men's sports. Unfortunately, a lot of people see what goes on in the big world of Division I sports. That's what you read about in the paper. Football, basketball, drive men's sports. They're the revenue producing sports. Just recently at Florida, there was a great article about how those revenue producing sports enhance the entire sports program at the institution as well as the women's sports. So there shouldn't be opposition to how an institution can work its entire athletics department towards similar goals of winning championships in all its sports. But unfortunately, some of the smaller schools, the Division II, the Division III schools, are going to be constantly faced with budget challenges, and those are the institutions where you may see that schools are looking to cut men's sports in order to meet Title IX regulations. We have to fill out what's called an Equity in Athletics Disclosure Act paperwork, and each year the federal government requires you to report the proportions of men to women at your school, the amount of dollars that are spent in athletics, the amount of participants that are on intercollegiate sports at your school. And this is a checks and balance situation for institutions to make sure they're complying with Title IX. And it's been a very important tool, and it's allowed us to really analyze where our funding is going at our institution and the equality, to maintain the equality that we strive for to meet Title IX regulations, as well as, you know, enhance the opportunities for women as well as men that want to participate in intercollegiate sports at Bentley. Title IX has definitely helped enhance the women's sports experience. For example, this weight room here probably wouldn't have been accessible to women back in the 80s, 70s, of course. And perhaps maybe just the football team would use it, or a couple men's sports, but the women's teams are afforded all these opportunities just as much as the men's teams. And of course, funding is definitely increased for all the essentials necessary to run a college athletics program, not only for the men, but for the women, such as locker facilities. Title IX mandates that similar resources have to be afforded women as they are to men. Title IX has afforded me way more opportunities than my old coach here, who happens to be my mom. And I remembered back in the day when she would be fighting for the same access to the high school gym as her male counterpart at Manhasset High School. But now we don't fight for this gym. We are afforded all the same opportunities as our men's programs here at Bentley University.